whatever he thinks correct from the ICC standpoint. Welcome, Mayank Jalan, sir.
Good evening, sir. I would like to thank Resurgent and Union Bank for organizing this. On behalf of Indian Chamber of Commerce, I want to welcome all the participants. Banks are the pivotal institutions of the financial sector, which plays a key role in economic growth of any country. It has been the backbone of all our industries, and especially in MSME. This COVID-19 has brought over a major socio-economic crisis for the entire world and for India. One of the most affected sectors in the economy is MSME. They have been facing severe liquidity crunch, supply chain disruptions, labor migration issues, and lack of demand. It is a time where all the industries are required to come together and support each other. And the only way I think MSMEs, or rather any industry, would survive by getting good financial support. And conversely, the financial sectors will sustain when the other industries are flourishing. It's a vicious circle in which the economy strives, and we have to utilize this interim period to develop and create best practices and disseminate them to create a long-lasting bond between banks and industry. So with all the announcements in the last 2 or 3 days and the Prime Minister's announcements, the way that I understand it is most of the heavy lifting is going to be left between RBI and the banks. It seems that every single scheme that is being launched right now is a scheme where there's credit flow, there's liquidity flow, which will be channelized through banks. So, and also I firmly believe that PSU banks have built India's corporates. If you look at any of the corporates today, whether medium, large, or mega, somewhere or the other, the basic, the foundation has been built by PSU banks like yourself. So in rebuilding our economy from current situation, because actually it's nothing but rebuilding. We are actually going to scratch and we have to rebuild. I believe that you as a PSU and as a bank has to play the most important role in passing on liquidity, in recapitalizing companies and filling up these holes. So we would want to hear from you is that all the heavy lifting which you are expected to do you think that that's going to happen easily? The other thing that a lot of queries that I am getting as the Indian Chamber President, there's a lot of MSMEs who do not have any credit lines. There's a lot of micro enterprises who don't have any borrowings. Their incomes have gone to zero. They used to live month to month. And today they are trying to figure out is how to get a 50 lakh rupee loan. It's just 50 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. 1,100 distributors of my company to have no credit lines. With their incomes gone, now they are saying that you give me credit or get me credit from the bank. In these kind of situations, what can we expect from the banks, banking sector, and especially, the builders of our economy, I think the PSU banks. So over to you, sir.
Fantastic, Mayank, sir. MSME, sir, as you understand, sir, it's the backbone, and in these difficult times, they are the worst hit. It is heartening to see that banks are walking that extra mile to make the life of the MSME as easy as possible. We are thankful to you, sir, and now I hand over the mic to you, to baton to you, to please guide us, please mentor us.
Yes.
Where is Union Bank and the MSME, sir? Welcome to you, sir, on this.
Good evening, Jyoti ji and Mr. Mayank. I thank you for this opportunity, because this is the forum through which we can definitely connect to large number of people, particularly who are running MSMEs, and clarify what banks are doing, maybe clarify some of their doubts. So now, actually, to start with, the importance of MSME in our country actually can be really seen by their contribution to the GDP. Actually, today, almost 1/3 of our GDP is contributed by MSME, and they employ substantially large number of people because they're the biggest employer after agriculture. And agriculture, basically, it is not that cash generating, whereas MSME employees are generally cash generating and contribute to the economy in other ways also. So it is estimated that more than 11 crore people are employed by different MSMEs. So the importance of MSME is always there. And even for banks, actually, generally 1/5 of our credit, 1/4, like generally roughly about 1/5 of our credit goes to MSMEs. But somehow, traditionally, over a period of time, the focus area of the banks has been large corporates, and MSMEs were also being there, but then never got that opportunity to compete with the large corporates. And one of the reasons were lack of data. Now, when Mr. Mayankji was mentioning that his chain, actually, his vendors and others don't have credit lines, is basically lack of data. Because if you want a bank credit, naturally we need their balance sheet, we need their turnover data and all that, because these are more on informal lines actually. So getting bank credit lines were a bit difficult, and that is where the NBFCs came in. Actually, NBFCs definitely helped many of the small and micro units by way of taking mortgages or otherwise, but then they really helped these MSME units to get credit and come to the formal economy to some extent. But then I think even today, majority of the MSMEs are not in the formal sector. They're not getting credit from the banks. They must be depending on other sources of borrowing even today. So today, actually, my preparation was mainly on MSMEs which are already linked with the banks. Because this is where most of the things are getting targeted. So people who are outside the system, yes, there should be another way of connecting to them, like what we have done in agriculture. I think may have to happen in MSME. So since Mr. Mayank mentioned about it, at this point of time, let us focus on MSMEs which are already linked to the banks and what kind of products and all that. So we'll also, maybe another day, we'll try to talk about those MSMEs which are not in the formal sector, how to bring them in and all that. We need to work on that also. So most of these announcements, if you see, actually, like somewhere the banks are the major players who will deliver most of these announcements which have been announced by the Honorable FM in the last 2 days. Even today, there are a lot of announcements happening. So actually, we can classify the MSME issues into pre-COVID days and post-COVID days. It is not that it is all hunky-dory before pre-COVID. Because pre-COVID also we had a lot of issues. Last 1 year, we were seeing very huge credit costs coming in MSMEs, a lot of defaults, stress. That's why RBI also came out with a very special MSME restructuring scheme in 2019, and again they extended to 2020. So many of these MSMEs which are under stress are already restructured. So, and identified and restructured, fresh lines of credits are given. Those kind of activities are going on. So that means actually pre-COVID days, there were a lot of issues which are going on. And MSMEs were already under stress. Because if you really identify the problems of MSMEs which are linked to credit, see, there are two major things. Actually, if they have liquidity issue, it is very easy to address. But if they have a solvency issue, it is very difficult to address. And many times, like MSMEs, when they present a solvency issue as a liquidity issue. Now what happens? Temporarily, they make it a relief by getting some additional limits and all that. But within 6 months, 9 months, actual issues will play out. Ultimately, they continue to be in stress and their problem is never sorted out. If they have a solvency issue, particularly because of a receivable problem, like one of the major buyer has not paid them in time, and there's a book debt outstanding maybe for more than 9 months, more than 1 year kind of thing, then that creates a solvency issue there. So you need a deep restructuring there, or converting part of that loan into a long-term loan, so that that should not become part of the working capital cycle for them, because then the assessment goes wrong. Because many of their, most of their drawing power gets blocked by these old receivables, which are not actually getting collected. So these are basically which will hit the solvency issue. Similarly, they have raw material issues sometimes coming up. Then there are supply chain issues. Then sometimes there is a technology issue also. Because of the funding issue, they're not able to upgrade in time. So these kind of issues are there, which MSMEs have to realize and work on that. Because with the banker, they have to be very transparent and open. So the real issues have to be reflected when they discuss with the banks. Because sometimes they think, मुझे और एक 50 लाख मिल गए तो मेरा problem solve हो जाएगा, मेरा 1 crore मिल गए तो problem solve हो जाएगा. Like that they work, and they will also ask their financial advisors to prepare accordingly. But that doesn't solve their problem. If it is a liquidity issue, it has to be handled separately. If it is a solvency issue, it has to be handled separately. So then, there was and in pre-COVID days, the government also took some steps. Actually, RBI started with the restructuring and facilitation, to get extra credit and all that. Then the PSB 59 portal was also a great step by the government, so that MSMEs, what Mayankji was specifically referring, if they have that GST returns and all that, it is very easy to get into PSB 59 and get in principle approval. Nowadays, actually, even the sanctions in PSB 59 portal has improved a lot. And even our banks, if you see, if you go to our websites, there is always a way to apply for a loan online also. It has not become a straight through processing because there is a lot of technology needed and we are working on those things. Like it will take maybe a few more months for developing our own straight through processing for loans. But then the PSB 59 portal is always available and there is a very good escalation mechanism also there. See, if there is in principle sanction, it hits the bank and banks also have to take a time bound decision. So any MSME which is looking for credit, the PSB 59 is one of the great access for them. So, okay, when there is lack of data and they're not able to get in principle approval, the only way out is to go and convince a branch manager to give them money. But then these are the facilitations which have happened during this period. Then let us come to the post-COVID days. Now, post-COVID days have become very critical. One is the lockdown. Now, MSMEs, as it is, they were hand-to-mouth existence. Now, just imagine 1.5 months, there is no receivable because everybody is locked down. There is no payment coming in. And then there is a cost of labor. And then then there are electricity bills to be paid. There are so many other costs actually. Even though moratorium was given on the loan repayment and other things, but then there are a lot of other costs because they have to keep it clean. They have to pay certain bills. The salaries have to be paid. And people who are depending on contract labor, retaining them is another challenge. So there are several issues. So one of the quickest solution we gave was a emergency line of credit, which is 10% of the working capital, which every bank, particularly public sector banks, because private sector did not participate to that extent, but the public sector has with the wholehearted they have come out and supported. And actually public sector banks came together because every bank launched its own product. There was no uniformity, there was confusion. Then there was a committee formed and Mr. Biswal was a member of that committee who will speak after me because specific Union Bank products, he will give the details so that people will know what kind of products we have launched. So then a common product was launched, which is across the public sector bank is very common, but 10% of the working capital limits as given as a straight through loan. And in our bank, we have gone one step further actually. I think maybe about 1.2 lakh MSMEs which are eligible, particularly below 1 crore. We are going above 1 crore also because we thought they are the people who will have the greatest difficulty in approaching and getting money from the branches. Above 1 crore customers are generally known to the branch manager, somehow they can manage. So about 1.2 lakh account, from the back end, we assessed that these are the people who are eligible and we sanctioned pre-approved loans. And I think as we stand today, more than 40,000 accounts are already sanctioned and the documents are under process, this 10%. Because basically it's a temporary liquidity we gave because we realized that they need this money to temporarily keep them afloat. Because even if you have to open your shutters next week, there are certain basic requirements. That is one of the things we did. And now as we go forward, there are a lot of announcements coming. Actually, I think that is a great announcement from Honorable FM, particularly on redefining MSME. This was a long pending demand because see, MSMEs have certain benefits. Now what happens, any entrepreneur, because I've interacted with many number of MSME entrepreneurs, they come with great ideas. So actually that's why I always say that your DNA is different because otherwise you would have joined a bank or a government service like us because we are a bit like not kind of risk takers. Because these are the people who are risk takers. They want to really explore like the business side, take risk, and they have ideas. They're creators of wealth and also employ so many people. So these are the people who come in actually. But then what happens because of these benefits, they try to restrict their growth. Because if I put more machinery, then I'll be crossing the MSME limit. Then it will attract a lot of taxes and scrutiny. So now with that in mind, the government has already enhanced actually because they removed the difference between manufacturing and service. Because see, service industry was not that big when we started, but then today the major chunk of MSME is service industry also. So now this is something like playing a major role. So now they have removed that difference, and then you are all aware how the government has put that like they given the increased cap for investment in plant and machinery for both manufacturing and service, and also put a turnover criteria now. Because there is a bill which was under discussion, so it was in the public domain also. So pending that, government has given some relief now, so which is very immediate. And as we go forward, I hope that government will relax it further, so that more and more units will come under MSME and will be eligible for these benefits, whatever government is giving. That's one part of it. The second is the major chunk is coming by way of 3 lakh crore, the credit guarantee based free loans, actually like credit, like guarantee, the collateral free automatic loans, what Madam called the other day. See, 3 lakh is basically assessed at about 15 lakh crores of outstanding, and that 20% is 3 lakh crores. So I'll give you an example. Suppose somebody is enjoying a 10 lakh crore limit today and is really stuck. He has to start his business next week. Now this comes in very handy because he is eligible for 20%, means about 22 crores. Now 2 crores will come in definitely handy. And these 2 crores, the government is completely guaranteed. And there is no guarantee fee to be paid, and even they are capping the interest rate. So this will come much cheaper than what rate they are paying. And for banks, the advantage is because this is sovereign guarantee, because the government is giving the guarantee, there is no capital requirement. So it is very easy to lend. Now, anyway, we will develop a system because the operating guidelines have not come. Now, today, what I have done for my 10% limit, I can always do for the 20% because I have the list of accounts which are eligible from the back end, and we can simply like process that and give a pre-approved loan. They can walk in. And so what we are trying to do is make the credit flow easier for MSME customer so that he can focus on his business and setting up his business rather than running around the bank. So actually his mobile, like when he starts his business, he should have a message that you have a pre-approved loan of 1 crore, you have a pre-approved loan of 2 crores. So he is rest assured that the bank is ready with the money. He has to go and execute a document and take that money so that he can focus on other things which are very important, getting the labor in, getting the orders in, and maybe there is maybe stocking process, there will be finished stock which he has to dispatch, then there are supply chains which he has to take care, because these are all seriously disrupted today. It is not that easy that on the day one, the things will be like very easy to flow. So there are many things, and the entrepreneur has to look at all these issues. So I think these are the things which will I think flow, and banks are taking care of these issues. And as a banker, what we want to assure to all the MSME customers is we are there with you, and the government is facilitating. Actually, these are the products which are coming very handy now, so that immediately you get all these benefits so that you can start the business. Is it the final solution? No, because now actually we need to see how much of equity loss has happened, and then what kind of, if there are real solvency issues, because there is one more scheme which is going to give sub debt. Actually, we are yet to get the operating guidelines, because somewhere, see, this is what we need to understand here is government very well understands there is a problem with the equity of the promoter also. The sub debts is basically to try to compensate the equity, because like today I have a drawing for assessment where there is some margin required. Now, if the capital of the promoter is wiped out, how will run the business without margins? So the margins have to come in by way of equity or sub debts and all that. So now the government is also looking at that. Actually, there are certain announcements made in that line also. Hopefully, all these put together, and maybe one of the demand from the regulator is to go for a deep restructuring, because this is very important, because MSMEs where they have solvency issues, I think the restructuring is required, because as the biggest employer of the country today, MSMEs need that support. Because if you have to create a demand push in the economy, which is important, then I think the MSMEs have to come to the forefront, create that employment, and create again that exports, because they are the biggest chunk. Again, even the export, they hold a major part of that export from our country. So all these have to be activated. So the demand push can happen from this side. So all of us realize the importance of MSMEs. So we'll all work together. So at this point of time, before I end, as you rightly mentioned, the big salute to the bankers who are in the field, and my actually BCs, our business correspondents who are working at different villages and all that, who really took load out of my branches and distributed money, that 500,000 rupees, whatever came to their accounts, which was given from the government. So everywhere there are big queues, and also thank the customers for behaving well, because there were large queues. You would have seen the photos, but then they all stood patiently, maintained that social distancing, helped the staff to deliver the services. So everybody has taken that in their stride. Hopefully, I think all these difficult times are behind us. Maybe there is a transition period. After that, all of us have to work together to get the economy back to tracks, so that we all contribute to reviving the economy and the most ambitious plan of our Prime Minister, which he has announced now, a 20 lakh crores of push for the economy. So we have a major role to play. And with this, I'll stop here because I'm available for the question and answer session, because it will be very interesting to really look for, like, I'll look for what kind of feelings you have, and like, we'll be happy to get questions from your MSME customers to understand their perspectives. I'm available for the question and answer session. And meanwhile, I can request Mr. Biswal to come in and explain what Union Bank is doing. Thank you so much.
Yes, Biswal sir. We'll just take thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Raisa. Thank you very much. Good evening to all participants. Raisa has briefly touched even whatever schemes we have developed and whatever we have done post-COVID. But before giving a brief of the things we have done, let me explain the organizational structure of UBI for dealing with corporate credit. In United, because those of you who are dealing with Union Bank, they may be aware of this structure and the systems, and many of you may not be dealing with the Union Bank. So I want to give a brief about the structure for corporate credit. In Union Bank of India, entire corporate credit, whether it is MSME, mid corporate or large corporate, we deal it in a vertical structure. Vertical structure, I mean, the proposal do not flow through the administrative structure like regional office, zonal office, head office, and all those things. It does not flow like that. Straight away from the branch, it comes to the next sanctioning authority, whether it is head office or zonal office or whatever it may be. There are only two tier, straight from the branch and then to the head office. We have three verticals. One is large corporate vertical. As of now, they are dealing with proposals of 150 crore and above. That is likely to be revised to 250 crore and above. And then we have a mid corporate sector dealing with 50 to 150 crore as of now. So they will be dealing with up to 250 crore subsequently now. And the third structure is the MSME vertical, which deals with the rest all others up to 50 crore. So we have all over India some large corporate branches. We call them as industrial finance branches. Those branches, they entertain proposals of 150 crore and above. And these proposals straight away flow from the branch to head office. It does not require any recommendation, anything from the regional office or zonal office. And it is sanctioned here at the corporate office. Similarly, from the we have around some mid corporate branches. They deal up to 150 crore. In that case also, the proposal comes straight away from the mid corporate branch to head office. It bypasses all other structures. In a case of MSME, we have these acquisition and processing centers. In that center, up to their power, they sanction at their level. And beyond their power, it flows directly to the next sanctioning authority. It does not flow through any other administrative structure. So this is how we deal with the corporate credit. And we have this structure for last 2-3 years, and it is well established now, performing very well. All over India, we have right at this moment around 7 these industrial finance branches. We have around, in Union Bank, we had around 22 mid corporate branches. With the merger of these other two banks, Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank with us, it will increase to 40 mid corporate branches. And we have around 57, we call them Sarals, where these MSME loans are processed and sanctioned. But this will increase to 90 post-merger. So with this 90 Sarals, around 40 mid-corporate branches and 7 industrial finance branches spread all across the country, and more than 9,500 branches, we cover entire country. Now, coming to the this COVID period, what we have done in our bank. Before that, let me just give a brief of what are other things we have in our bank. As Mayankji was explaining that most of the MSME borrowers, they do not have even credit facility as of now. So Raisa has briefly touched upon this straight-through processing. In our bank, already we are in advanced stage of this straight-through processing for MSME loans. We have already tied up with the fintech companies. Because of this COVID situation, it is getting delayed. Otherwise, the original plan was to launch it on 1st of April itself. So we are getting delayed by 2-3 months. Maybe in next 1 or 2 months, we will be ready and we will come out with the straight through processing for MSME loans, where it will be up to the final sanction, not even preliminary sanction or in principle sanction. It will be up to final sanction up to certain amount, of course, because there are field visits and all it is required. We are also planning for up to some extent, it will be even documentation will be done online, of course, up to a limited extent. That also it is in our plan. Very shortly we will be launching this product. We have launched this product for our retail loans, personal loans. Already it is launched, but MSME it is getting delayed because a lot of tie-up has to be done. We are very active, but before that we are very active in the government portal PSB 59, and our sanction rate is close to 70-80%. Rejection rate is very low. So if the proposal through PSB 59, and there also we maintain a very strict timeline, and our TAT is very, very competitive. Then we have some schemes for different industrial clusters. We have around 28 clusters all over India. For maybe for leather, maybe for granite or some other activity. We have 28 clusters, and we have specific schemes for those clusters. Better rate of interest, security, and all those things. And we have specific schemes for those sectors. We have very specific schemes for different category of borrowers also, maybe for traders, for professionals, and all those things. We have separate schemes. They also come under MSME. Then we have for customer convenience, we have introduced a system of new to bank, where what we do, because in the branches it is very difficult to control the branch activity, and initially when somebody visits the branch for a loan, and they will ask him that you go get the search report, go get the valuation report, get the TV report, and all those things, and after getting all those things they will say no, it is not bankable and we cannot do that. To avoid all these things, we have developed a system of go, no-go system. It's a one-page form only, new to bank customer. They will give certain basic information about their activity and all. Based on that, preliminary will decide that yes, we want to go ahead or no. If it is no, then we'll tell immediately within 2-3 days that yes, we are not compatible with this, with the reason why we are not compatible. And if it is yes, then all other activities will follow. So these are some of the things we have done for MSME sector. Even for MSME sector, external rating, we have, it was up to 5 crore earlier. We have increased this external rating up to 25 crore. Up to 25 crore, we do not insist for external rating. We rely on our internal rating only. Now, during this COVID period of time, as Raisa had touched upon, immediately after this lockdown was declared, after State Bank of India, we were the next bank to come out with this COVID emergency line of credit immediately. Of course, it was subsequently modified and harmonized for all other banks. We modified that one. As per that scheme, as Raisa have told, we give 10% of the fund-based working capital immediately, with no additional collateral security, no margin, simple or a lower rate of interest. And as he said, we have already given some 1.2 initially we had given. Now we have given 1.4 lakh pre-approved loans to ease the convenience of the customers, because nowadays people cannot move out, stamp papers are not available. We have permitted our banks to disburse the loan immediately based on a simple promissory note and an undertaking that the full documentation will be done within 60 days of disbursement of the loan. So that also we have permitted. We are not insisting that entire documentation should be done before disbursement of the loan. So all these things we have done for emergency line of credit. Of course, government is coming out with another scheme, as Raisa was telling, for it will help a good number of customers. We are ready with that. We are waiting for the detailed guidelines from the government. Once that comes, definitely we will implement it immediately. In addition to this emergency line of credit, we have 2 more schemes. We have launched a scheme of liberalized working capital assessment, one for limits up to 5 crore and one for above 5 crore. Up to 5 crore because usually working capital is assessed based on turnover method. So earlier, under normal circumstances, 25% of the turnover, projected turnover, is taken as working capital requirement. Under this liberalized scheme which we have launched, we have given 33% of the turnover as working capital requirement. So additional around 8 crore will be getting under this scheme. So we have given the relaxation on the on margin. The margin can come down to 13%. It can be 10% on stock and 15% on book debt, but overall margin should be around 13%, so that DP is not a problem. Then above 5 crore, we have launched this scheme where the working capital cycle of individual borrowers can be reassessed. It can be increased, and accordingly, because those are assessed on either on MPBF method or cash budget method. So accordingly, the MPBF can be recalculated and given. These facilities go under both these schemes. It will be available for initial 12 months, and after 12 months, it will be reviewed. If the requirement is there, again, it can be extended for another 12 months. So initially, we have launched for this one. Then looking into the problem of non-conversed facilities, which is LCs are getting invoked and LG is devolved. So we have permitted our branches, any LC or LG getting invoked or devolved during this period, 1st of March to 31st of May, can be converted to fund-based facility. And we have allowed some certain time period for getting it back to the normal situation. That also we have permitted to our branches. In addition to this, whatever regulatory package has been announced by RBI, we have implemented all from the backend, like deferment of installments for March, April, and May. We did it from the backend with the option to the borrower or the customer that they can opt out of that scheme. We have given it to everybody. Somebody not desirous of availing that one, he can opt out of that scheme. So that too through SMS only, not physically going to the branch and saying, no, I do not want, nothing of that sort. We have communicated through SMS and through email. They can also digitally communicate that, yes, I do not want this facility. Similarly, for the interest on working capital, which RBI has permitted for these 3 months, that also we have given from the back end. Even the asset classification status quo to be maintained, whatever was there on the 1st of March, that also, although it was declared after March, we have permitted from the back end to all the customers who were getting classified or their account was getting downgraded. That also we have permitted from the back end. All our MSME loans are linked to external benchmark lending rate. And our external benchmark, which we have taken, that is the repo rate. So it is linked to the repo rate. As and when repo rate increases or decreases, it immediately gets passed on to the borrower. So that also we have implemented. So these are some of the schemes I touched upon. I'll take a break here, and we are open to any questions and.
Sir, absolutely fantastic hearing, and so heartening to see that sir, bankers are walking that extra mile, sir. I suppose once I open the question, I suppose, Mayank, will you like to start with it, and thereafter we can take all the audience's question,
Sure.
Mayank? Yeah.
So, so I know that this is a question which you would be asked every day by all your customers. I've got actually 2-3 questions. The first question is that, do we expect any further reduction of interest rates from the banks? And then also, are you expecting the RBI to reduce the rates further in the coming monetary policy action? So one roundtable that we had with a lot of senior bankers did suggest to us that for medium to large corporates, one of the biggest hindrances for helping them refinance their business post this loss is the RBI circular, which prohibits a general purpose corporate loan. We all are going to make cash losses. And to fill that cash loss, there's only 2 ways, equity or debt. Equity is not there in our country. We all know that equity has been wiped out over the last 5 to 6 years with the kind of NPAs and with the kind of losses that most of us have had. If equity is not an option, debt is also not seeming as an option because RBI doesn't allow you to give a general purpose corporate loan. So are you expecting any changes in that? The last question that I have is post September and October, we are looking at a massive downgrading by credit rating agencies of most of the companies. So either they would fall from investment grade to junk grade or non-investment grade, or they would fall from AA to A and BBB to BB, which would actually mean that you either recall their loans because they're not investment grade anymore, as per your RBI and the banking norms, or it would mean that you increase the spread as per your internal guideline, not just yours, all the banks, which means that a company which is not doing well will further go into a hole. So do you see any changes in credit rating, the way that your bank and generally the banking industry is going to deal with it? So I'll stop there, sir. Thank you.
Yes, Rajkiran Rai, sir. Sir, you have to unmute yourself, Rajkiran Rai, sir. Sir, Manas.
Yeah.
Yes,
Excellent questions. Actually, I think all the three questions I'll answer. See, reduction of interest rates is RBI's domain, but it is expected to come down. They have come down substantially. The first time we are seeing such low rates. But then definitely, if you ask me, looking at the current situation, that there is a good chance that it will come down further. So, and MSMEs are already linked to external benchmark EBLR, what we call. So all MSMEs, because as per the RBI guidelines, they're all linked to EBLR. Now, last time when they brought it down by 75 basis points, next day banks also have to bring down the EBLR by 75 basis points. So the transmission also is very quick, because most of the banks have linked their external benchmark to repo rate. Because whenever RBI cuts the rate, automatically MSMEs and retail, all of them are benefited by this rate cut. So I think interest rate reduction is a good possibility, and I'm very sure as we go forward, it will come down further. Because I'm very sure that it's a big concern, because interest is a big cost for most of the MSMEs and particularly the mid sector. So naturally it has to come down. But the biggest problem for banks is my major raw material is deposit. So unless I cut the rate on deposit, I cannot bring down the rates beyond a point. And our country, the biggest social security is bank deposits. Everybody works and saves money and put in bank, and that interest on which most of the senior citizens survive. So how, to what extent we can bring down the deposit rate is another question. So when you are looking for lower rates, you should also understand there is another section in the society, that is the depositors and senior citizens who are seriously impacted. So that is one thing. There is a balancing act which has to be paid. So one of the ways to get over this may be there are two ways. One is interest subventions, and other is bringing down the credit cost. Because like when I charge interest, because there are two main factors. One is the deposit cost, another is the credit cost. With a NPA of more than 10% and in some cases even 15% in MSME sector, naturally my credit cost is much high, which gets loaded. So that's why the cost is high. But then yes, I'm definitely looking at much lower rates, and it is well regulated now. So your question about general purpose corporate loans, I fully appreciate, because you really acknowledge that. Because we also know that today the capital is wiped out because of the losses and delay in receivables which are not getting collected, and maybe some investments have gone wrong and all that. So there is some way we need to do that, because the sub-debt scheme announcement itself recognizes that there is a requirement of giving some kind of debt which is comparatively longer term with a very longer moratorium period, so that it can build the equity in the system. It should not be treated as any other liability. It should be the sub-debt so that it has an equity component in it. And if you remember, earlier IDBI had these soft loans. When the initial period, when the most of these big industries which are there today, when they started their journey in say 80s and all that, so IDBI was one of the major players then. They had a soft loan scheme where the moratorium is 5 years after 1% interest, and is nothing but building equity. Because rightly said, our country doesn't have that kind of equity. How many promoters are there who can write 100 crores like equity today, like they check for 100 crores equity? It's very difficult. So naturally some ways have to be found out. But since you mentioned about general purpose corporate loan, actually I don't recall that it is strictly banned. Because if you are able to make a case that this is required for a particular purpose, and only thing is there will be some collateral requirement in that kind of loans, because we still do that. So some of the media industries, we have sanctioned general purpose corporate loans, but then they have, because the purpose has to be defined, well defined, because even in cases where the margins are not there, the current ratio is below 1. When we find that there is some like promoter equity is not there. So I have done actually. So we give some loan as a general purpose corporate loan, but then we take a security because he has some property somewhere. Based on that, we build a scheme and we do that. So since I have sanctioned it even last month, so I'm very sure that there is no ban on that. But then banks may not be doing because of the risk attached to that. But when you are sufficiently convinced, and I think you will convince your banker, this is a good scheme to bridge the equity. Because so I think this thing. And rating downgrades, yes. See, actually, one of the webinars recently I spoke, another newspaper also covered it. I have already floated this idea, but that MSMEs have to be rated differently. Now, the rating agencies follow the same template for the big corporates to mid corporate to small corporates. So now what happens is that they operate at a totally different plane. Like, suppose a raw material is imported. Now, like a large company may get at the best term a container load of raw material and with a good payment terms, maybe 180 days credit. But very small MSME must be buying it from local market, so he doesn't get credit, and then the pricing also is different. So they're differently placed. Actually, their margins are different. So suppose if they take a EBITDA percentage, the large fellow must be making bigger margin, but a small MSME may not be making that margin. So these are the things which are not factored in the template of the rating agencies. So the time has come. I think the Chamber of Commerce and all that, CIBIL has already developed some CMR ratings. So CMR ratings are being used by many of the banks today. So now these are the things you need to really look at. Like, can we develop this kind of systems so that MSMEs are rated differently? And then we go to the regulator and take a prescription that, okay, like MSME up to 100 crore turnover, they need not go for external rating. So our MSME up to 250 crores, they need not go for external rating. So we can use the CMR rating or other parallel ratings, or maybe internal rating of the banks. So like we also have built a robust rating system. So these kind of things can be looked at. So that is the only way, because you can't help in rating downgrades because the rating agencies are independent. And since the June quarter results are going to be bad, and maybe September also going to be equally bad, naturally we may look at rating downgrades. And then how to handle that is something which we have to plan. Maybe this is a good discussion point, and maybe I'll take it on some other day. We can really look at this thing, go for some regulatory forbearances so that the banks also, because if it is a temporary issue, see, if I'm very sure because some reasons you are only operating at 20-30% capability today, because of that your rating is coming down, and I'm pretty sure by third quarter or fourth quarter you are going to go up to 75-80% and you are going to come back to normalcy. Why should I hit you for a year? If the rating is supposed to go up next year, let us wait for that. So some kind of forbearance like that can be built, but these are all suggestions at this point of time. We need to really deliberate, develop proper recommendations, push it to the proper bodies like IBA or your own Chamber of Commerce and all that, push it to the government and the regulator. That's the way. And we are definitely there to help because we understand these issues very well. So thank you.
So Rajkiran Rai, sir, as you mentioned about that rate of interest issue, sir, what is happening, what we understand that Reserve Bank of India reduces the repo rate, and I as a client get the money in the form of an MCLR. And MCLR, there is a reset date mentioned. So in case if the loan is been tagged to the repo rate of mine, so as soon as the repo rate is reduced, my rate of interest get automatically get adjusted. So there are two issues, sir. RBI तो repo rate कम करता है, बैंक customer को MCLR में दे रहा है पैसे, तो repo and MCLR they also don't match with each other, and also there is a reset date which is there. So how to overcome this issue, Rajkiran?
Simple solution: shift to EBLR, external benchmark rate. Yeah.
So
yeah,
are the banks, sir? I suppose there are a lot of banks which have started linking to the repo rate. Yes. How is the Union Bank linking the rate of interest to the repo rate
already? So you can just walk into your branch, give a letter that link me to EBLR.
So what we have been given. So there are a lot of chat boxes and lot of questions which are coming that banks is allowing this for the new customer, but for the existing customer which is into MCLR, for them the banks are not very comfortable in getting it converted there.
I think maybe Mr. Biswal will clarify. I think we have allowed for existing
customer or Biswal sir, is it allowed for the existing customer also?
Yes, it is allowed for the existing customers also, but when it falls due for renewal.
When it falls due, sir, this is correct, sir.
Before that, if you want to avail this one, then you can go to the branch and give a letter that yes, I want to switch over to EBLR. Then it can be considered.
So there is one more thing, the COVID loan, which is given as 10% of the working capital limit. Sir, a lot of banks are considering only the fund-based limit. They are not considering the non-fund-based limit while considering this COVID loan of 10%. How do you think that? Because while you are doing an MPBF calculation, sir, fund-based and non-fund-based, both are part of it, sir. So I suppose this 10% dilemma or this dichotomy, sir, this need to be resolved, sir.
I agree with you, because this was one of the quickest reaction actually. For the COVID situation, 10%. So that time bankers like a group decided that initially let us give it on the fund-based limit. That's how this evolved. So as we go forward, definitely we will look at all this, because now we are getting that 20% which is already announced. So that point of time, let us try to work on all these issues, because that time actually we didn't have time to think. Actually within 3-4 days we launched this. So that time we thought fund-based will be adequate. The quickest this thing, but then yes, as we go forward we have to look at it, because one more point I'll mention, most of these MSMEs and mid corporate particularly, because the LCs and are falling due, and we are converting them to fund based, because I think members are watching, because I saw some questions also.
Correct, sir, they are all coming on that way,
so they can just walk into their branch. Actually, see, one more thing, we have our we are very active on social media, Indian Bank particularly, and we have our website. If you have any issues, because see, some of the places, my branches are not fully equipped now because of the less manpower and all that. You can just flag it, because everywhere, as Mr. Biswal explained, we have a Saral structure and a mid-corporate branches, which are specifically mandated to handle MSME and mid-corporates. So I think we can walk into these branches or just flag these issues. Our teams will take care. So like suppose LC is falling due, we are converting it to fund-based limit seamlessly, so that there is no devolvement and there is no black mark on you for devolvement. We are seamlessly doing it. But then you need to approach your branch, give a letter, and branch manager doesn't understand or not doesn't have the support system. You can just flag it to us, we will take care.
So one thing, sir, although we have a 3 months of deferment of the interest and the installment, but sir, automatically this 3-month interest along with March, April, May, this and along with June, I have to pay all the 4-month interest in the month of June, sir. So do you think that you only started with that liquidity and also the liquidity and also the solvency issue, sir? So don't you think this liquidity issue will be converted to solvency issue in the month of June, sir?
Yeah, let us wait for what RBI is going to come up with.
So, okay, so this issue
is flagged. RBI is fully aware. In our bankers meeting also, this issue was raised, because you can't expect these businesses to pay 3 months interest in one stroke. And maybe actually, see, regulatory is fully seized of all these issues. That much I can assure you. So what steps they will take? Because see, financial sector stability is one thing is always in the mind of the regulator. Whatever relaxation they give, they need to ensure that the banks are healthy and banks are stable. Because if we are weak, then we can't support you. So health of the banks are very, very important. So whatever regulator does, they will keep the health of the bank in mind and do that. But I'm very sure, like, because now there is a moratorium period, extension demand and all that. So at that, because that was a very quick reaction. If you remember what RBI came up with very quickly, it was a very quick reaction to the situation. And always they promised, as the things evolve, we will look into other issues. Now these issues are flagged. Let us wait. I think at this point of time, how they will take it, these 3 months interest and all that. So let us wait for RBI, and maybe like if it is the issue, then we will support you. That's why they permitted reassessment of working capital. Now already we are reassessing. There are a lot of requests already received, which we are doing. So reassessment of working capital is nothing but increasing the drawing power by reducing margins. Maybe your book date, I am giving 90 days, I will increase to 180 days or 270 days, so that you get a higher DP. So to take care of that extra demand, we are also parallelly doing that.
Sir, you mentioned about that financial liquidity at the financial market to maintain. Sir, NBFC are an important ingredients for doing that. And these 3 months deferment, only one bank has announced that for this NBFC, this 3 months installment and the interest only, they are not, most of the banks are not allowing NBFC for their installment to defer. So whatever the customers who has borrowed from NBFC, so NBFCs are pressurizing those customers to pay them on time. So ultimately the MSME, because the NBFC which might have borrowed from your bank and might have lended to an MSME, because your bank is not allowing that deferment, so ultimately that MSME borrower is suffering at the ground level, sir. How to resolve this issue? This is one thing. And the another point which is again coming from an NBFC perspective is that, sir, lot of NBFC after this seasoning is being done, which is around say 6 months of regular installment and everything, NBFC issues a pass-through certificate or they do some sort of a securitization of the loan. So NBFCs also have a concern that in case if there is a 3 months deferment which is given, so the entire portfolio will not be a seasoned portfolio and the entire rating of that NBFC will get for a toss. So ultimately, sir, वो problem तो sir वो तरबूजे पे चक्कू गिरेगा या किस पे गिरेगा, sir? The issue is with the MSME only, sir, that way.
I understand. I fully see. I think the deferment of NBFCs is now clear because initially there was some discussion whether to give or not. I think now the banks are sufficiently clear and the deferments are happening today. So NBFCs are getting their deferment installments, and we are also sanctioning. And many of the public sector banks have come in line because there are some issues, and now I think it is sufficiently clarified. They are eligible for deferment, and wherever required, we are giving. Many of the NBFCs prefer to pay. And because there is a LTRO available and then fresh lines of credit they're changing, because to maintain their credibility they are paying, they are choosing to pay. But then because we also, when we interact, about 50-60% of the collections they're making also, so they prefer to pay. But many NBFCs are asking for deferment, which we are giving. There is no issue on the securitization of loans and the pass-through certificates and all that. See, at one point of time, this market was very active, particularly post ILF as 2018. This is the way we provided sufficient liquidity to NBFCs. We bought the portfolios and all that. Nowadays, actually, what is happening is we are not getting that quality portfolio because even RBI regulations are a bit strict. Actually, if I'm buying a portfolio, that NBFC also should have followed the same guidelines which I follow. Now, suppose in housing loan, I have a loan to value ratio. In MSME, I also have certain parameters. Now they expect that NBFC should have sanctioned the loan keeping the same parameters, that quality standards have to be maintained. Now most of these portfolios, what we look at, generally they don't pass through our scrutiny. So they don't become eligible for either PTCs or other securitization. That is where the problem is. Otherwise, with the kind of liquidity I am sitting in, if there is a pool which is fitting into my norms, I'll be more than happy to buy. The problem is the largest chunk is already taken. And if you look at post 2018, even NBFCs are not creating much of assets. Actually, most of the money what they're taking, they're trying to balance their asset liability mismatches. Now, like if you look at it, most of the NBFCs, they had a liquidity of to meet 1 month commitment. Now, most of the NBFCs proudly say, I have 4 month commitment liquidity kept. So that means they are also playing safe because because of the rating issues and all that. But then if they are borrowing and keeping it as a liquid asset to meet the repayment, then it is not reaching ultimate borrower. So NBFCs also have become risk averse. So we need to look at that also. So NBFCs are not producing or procuring the assets to the extent what is required in the last 1.5 years. So I'm not getting the pools. But as a banker, I'll tell you, I'll always look for good quality pool. Because for us, all the pools we bought, they have behaved very well. So I have no issue because there is a particular product which is doing well. Why should I go away from it? So, but then I'm not getting sufficient pool.
So regarding the credit rating, which the Mayank sir also has pointed it out, sir, as per the Basel III also, sir, every bank is required to develop its own internal rating module, sir. Don't you think that for another 1 year or so we can do it, or at least as a bank you can do away with up to some threshold level, because किसी बैंक ने अभी तक वो 50 करोड़ तक का वो limit set किया where the no external rating is required. I suppose at least for this period of time, at least for next 1 year, at least for 100 crore or 150 crore of limit, this credit rating norms or say credit rating criteria may be wiped off, because sir, credit rating agency, they have got their hands tied up, sir, because in case if they don't downgrade or if anything goes bad, to RBI comes strictly on them. So how do you think that there can be something which we can expect something from the bank in this regard, some relaxation or something?
Yeah, actually, see, I can't do that because there are regulators. Correct. But as long as a MSME or a mid-corporate is not dealing with money market instruments like commercial papers or NCDs and other instruments, and they're dealing with only bank and bank credit. Such people, because the bank is assessing them already, so we may really look at deferring that rating. But then I'm not a competent authority to decide this. But then from the chamber, you can always represent. See, if a company has commercial papers and NCDs and other market instruments, so then because there is a SEBI also as a regulator, so then I think the rating, you will not be able to avoid rating because there will be investors also. But then as long as you are dealing only with your bank and you only have the bank credit lines, so those rating, because then only bank should know you. So then the banks depend on external rating, maybe waived for a year time so that we pass through this attack. But then you can take up that issue so that we'll also, then this is a good issue which emerged today. We'll also see how we can help you. But then there'll be a great idea, because otherwise a company which is always triple B or A, which are generally the mid corporates are in, why they should go to non-investment grade? Because history for the next 10 years will again say you went into default grade ones or the lower rating ones. So we can really look at it. I am with you on this, and but then we need to really get into the understand, can we defer it for 1 year?
Sir, I just give you one assumption, sir. Suppose there are two MSMEs started at the same time doing the same business. One MSME gave you 100% collateralized और उसने अपना घर वर सब कुछ आपको mortgage किया. There is one MSME which is able, which got the loan without having any of the collateral security, sir. Now they have both the MSME faced this COVID-19 situation, sir. So there is an MSME which has given the entire house and everything as a collateral, but there is no distinction between the SMA 1 to 0 norms or between the attitude of a banker also, because at a branch level you just can't differentiate कि sir तो दोनों की LC devolve हो गई है sir, तो दोनों के check bounce हो गए. But there is one guy who has given this entire everything. It is a matter of time because the bank will be able to realize some security out of that. There is one where there is no security available. Don't you think that it is a time that you differentiate between the MSMEs, because out of 1.2 lakh MSME which your bank only has got it, if you differentiate between the MSME which is 100% collateralized vis-a-vis MSME which is not 100% collateralized, don't you think that we start looking at both the MSME from a say, different eye altogether, sir?
Yeah, it should be seen like that. Maybe talking to you, I also get a feeling we need to develop a better resolution mechanism, because sometimes at the branch level, because of their busy work schedules and all that, if they're not able to really look at it, maybe we need to develop a resolution mechanism. We'll also, Mr. Biswal is there, I think we'll think about it, because we already have a redressal system, but then we can develop a more proactive system, because if somebody feels that he has given such good collateral, still he is not treated well, I think this is the time we need to really help him out, because he has put everything at stake. And bank should go out of the way to help him out. I think I am fully with you on this. Maybe we'll try to see how we can address these issues if it is not resolved, because he already mentioned, actually we have a processing center called Saral, and we have relationship managers placed there, and most of the cities, even tier 2 cities, we have these centers, and most of these people know about it. If you can reach out, that is for Union Bank customers, so definitely you can reach out. They are better equipped to handle it, because they are only doing the MSME loans. So I think if you can reach out, they will help you out. I think maybe as an idea, you can float it now, so that other banks also develop a mechanism. I will also sit with my team and see, can I give some access to these people? I think maybe, because I was also seeing on the screen some of the questions. If you go to our websites, actually you should go and scan websites. So websites, actually all the products are also uploaded. Because somebody was writing, okay, people are talking about this product, we are not knowing the product. Now I launch a product, by today evening it gets uploaded in the system. Now 10% what I am giving it is there already. So like that. So now actually when the 20%, when the government operationalizes it, it will be uploaded. So people should go and see every bank website is updated. So there is a lot of information available in bank websites, including if you have an issue like this, where to complain. And there is a beautiful escalation mechanism. So I think we should use all that. When your work is not done, instead of getting frustrated, use that mechanism.
Sir, there is one thing, sir, with this Andhra Bank coming in because of this Saral mechanism, sir, Union Bank customers and the Union Bank bankers are definitely used to this, because whatever the existing customers of Andhra Bank are there, You can see a lot of questions which is coming around all the merged bank with the customers are facing, because they're not used to this Saral. Even the Andhra Bank bankers, which to work earlier with Andhra Bank, erstwhile Andhra Bank, now they are with Union Bank of India. So they are a little bit confused, and so vis-a-vis the customers are also not getting the required service or the attention whatever is required that way. So how to resolve this this issue that after the merger, whatever the Union Bank policies are there, so that at least the Andhra Bank customers and the Corporation Bank customers are not facing this crisis? Because what happened, this merger thing happened between the COVID time, so there was no personal interaction time which was given to the customer, or koi face to face baat nahi kar sakta hai, sir. You can understand, sir, banking is all about touch and feel, sir. Aaj touch and feel nahi ho pata hai, sir, koi baat ke liye. It is so we are not able to meet the GM, sir. We are not able to meet the DGM, sir, at any point. So can there be a proper redressal mechanism that Friday this is a common webinar where all the journal head or common DGM will at least meet at least at the common webinar address, which is widely circulated and widely emailed for all the zonal offices, customer and the bankers at large, where they can at least go and discuss, where the GM can at least come and discuss on whatever the customer buyer interaction, which was to do face to face. At least at this time, something of that sort can be happened at the ground level, because ground level issues are not able to come up to the top level issues that way, sir. How this communication issue can be resolved at this point of time?
Sir? I agree with you, because but then we had anticipated this issue, because Andhra and Corporation, we could not move them to the Saral structure, because actually that is a technology needed and all that. But what we did is, we enabled all those, because their sanctioning is at branch levels, many places actually, or maybe regional office level. So we kept the same structure, because disturbing them at this point of time would have created more problem. So we told them that you sanction at your level or regional level, whatever mechanism you have, the same product we have given them. And actually I addressed all the regional heads also, saying that this is a scheme which should be available to customers. And if there is some problem, we will address that issue. Because in the last webinar, one Andhra Bank customer raised the issue, and then we immediately approached him, and then we solved that issue. But then these issues are very relevant, because see, despite all clarity, and I'll tell you, we have made booklets and given to all Andhra Bank and Corporation Bank managers defining the procedure. And actually there is a lending automation system which we have in Union Bank, which is Corporation Bank also has. We have given that access to Andhra Bank also today. It is very automatic. I tell you, the people have evolved to our in Finacle today, Union Bank. Now suppose that 10%, if there is a pre-approved loan, in 2 minutes your account is opened and the account is credited, amount is credited to your account. That is the technology in the Finacle which is built actually. But Andhra and Corporation is taking some time to come to that level. But meanwhile, sufficient clarity is given. Maybe some pockets, some branch managers, because of lack of clarity or some issue, these problems are popping up. But you can just flag it to us. I'll also immediately look at, as I was replying, can we look at some resolution mechanism through our websites and all that? Because we have a common website across the 3 banks. So I think your members, whoever is watching, should really go to our website and see what kind of mechanism is available for them to flag this kind of issues. Because we will immediately address, you'll get a response very quickly. And we are active on social media. And there is a team 24 hours watching that. You can put something very specific with a branch name and all that on Twitter, because we are active on Twitter also. So you can always use this, because many times what happens, there's a gap. You are suffering somewhere, sitting in Kolkata, and you are not able to reach us. And there is a lot of, as you said, you can't go to GM, you can't go to regional manager because of this lockdown and all that. But then sitting at home, you can easily connect. So we are there always to help you. I assure you that the schemes are there. Sufficient training has been given. But then there may be some misunderstanding in some part of actual delivery part. We will sort it out.
Sir, how much time you have, sir? We are already 6:10, sir. I have got 100+ questions to answer to you. Can you give us 5-10 minutes more, or how much time can you give?
Maybe 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
So maybe 10 minutes, sir. We'll try to have a quick rapid fire question type, sir. So there is the problem. People are also facing that I'm in a red zone, difficult to move anywhere. How can the bank process us to loan in a soft version? It is basically documentation issue at this point of time, sir. How are we addressing the documentation issue at this point of time, sir? This is from Sri Mani. Yes, sir.
We have allowed online application
Hmm.
for this 10%.
Hmm.
Okay, online application is permitted because that is very clearly defined. You can send an application through
So
online.
it is on the documentation part. उसका loan approved हो गया, but they
तो
want
loan
to avail
sanction हो
the
जाएगा.
sanction के बाद documentation नहीं कैसे करेंगे sir? यदि हम I am in a red zone, I cannot say travel.
See, we have a very simple documentation given. There is 1 or 2 pages thing which you have to just execute like that. I think somewhere because we have a we want a wet signature because now digitally these people are not evolved to that extent to have a digital signature. So some wet signature has to be taken, and we have given 60 days time for full documentation. In our scheme, you can borrow the money by 1 or 2 wet signatures. So somewhere either bank people will reach you or you have to reach somewhere for a day and just sign that. And there's a very simple documentation we have given. And then we have given 60 days for the Baki documentation so that the money is given to you and given 60 days to execute the document.
Rajkiran sir, अभी तो e-signature वाला time आ सकता है sir.
हमारे
There are banks,
But
sir. There are banks which are doing sir e-signature thing. So if that issue, if you can look into it and try and see legally how you can at the ground level, sir, because people are there in the red zone, people are there in the containment zone because the promoter or the one person cannot travel and he cannot come in there, sir, and the entire company goes for a toss that way, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you because like this is already because we also do a lot of because the digital signatures, most of these uploading of the data happens through that, but then at the ground level still it is not very active, and this is one thing which really need to evolve. I agree.
Sir, although people are appreciating that the government is giving the guarantee for the 20% of the loan, whatever is there, but don't you think this is the problem which is getting deferred and not resolved?
Actually, if it is a liquidity issue, the problem is resolved.
That
if
is
it is
correct.
A solvency issue, it is not resolved.
Sir, it is deferred, sir.
Yes.
So, sir, whether this 10% just, although the finer points need to come in, this 10% of the COVID loan is part of this 20% or it is over and above that loan?
Over and above.
Sir, this 20% of this loan, it includes the outstanding loan word has been used. So outstanding includes the term loan and the working capital. Working capital also includes fund-based and non-fund-based. It means fund-based working capital plus non-fund-based working capital plus term loan. ये तीनों को मिला के जो होगा उसका 20% देंगे ना?
I can give you clarity on 2 parts.
Yes,
term loan, working capital, fund-based, I think there is good clarity. Non-fund, whether it is included or not, I am not very clear. So it is total fund including term loan. That much I can tell you.
Sir, what about the MSME new definition? Because the new definition is coming to earlier who was classified by the Union Bank of India and getting all the MSME benefit. And now with the new definition, he may not qualify and he may not be treated as an MSME definition.
No, actually it is liberalized. No, more people will fall into
No,
MSME.
sir, what has happened? Sir, there is a turnover definition. There is a restriction of the turnover restriction has also come in. So turnover restrictions. So my plant and machinery might be less than 10 crore earlier, but my turnover might be 200 crore earlier. So I might
definitely, food processing industry will have that problem.
Food processing industry or any sort where there is a जहाँ पे capital requirement is less, but the value addition was less, and we could get that much.
Maybe this is an issue you need to flag before the final.
before this can come in that way. Sir.
Yeah, you need to flag. I agree with you. So with a specific case, you need to flag. Yeah, turnover is an issue. We'll also try to see.
So turnover issue. So how the MSME issue will be there as such, sir?
Actually,
so regarding
initially the bill, what is like?
So that was an earlier bill. It was earlier around 250 crore था, 250 crore का था, sir. वो तो सारा चीज उसके अंदर change होके आ गया है सारी चीज के लिए, sir. So there are a lot of questions coming about कि people will not have the drawing power limit, sir, in this next 3-4 months or next 1 year, sir. So अब जब ड्राइंग पावर लिमिट नहीं होगा तो सर ऑल्दो विश्वाल सर हैज एक्सप्लेन्ड अबाउट द पॉलिसी विश्वाल सर यू हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड कि इट इज लेस देन 5 करोड़ वेयर दे हैव डन अवे विद द ड्राइंग पावर लिमिट but sir you can understand it is you sir you have got more than 5 lakh customer with you, sir. So how this drawing power issue you are going to address, sir?
Even for 5 crore also we are giving the same facility. It can be brought down to overall 13%, even above 5 crore also.
Sir, 13% again, depending, sir, last 3 months mein what has happened, sir? It is not the drawing power because, sir, my April month sale has not happened. So your book debt limit, which you have given me only for say 60 days, it has automatically increased to 120 days, my book debt limit.
That's what also we have given relaxation. We have allowed 90 days more for this cover period. Suppose you
But
had
sir, it is only up to a particular section of a loan, sir. Or it is for the entire spectrum of the loan, sir.
entire.
So it is for the entire Union Bank customer that you think that the drawing power or the DP has been extended that way, sir?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, fantastic, sir.
I think this is taken care actually because
Mhm.
Mr. Biswal sat in that committee. So I
Mhm.
think we had assessed that there will be margin shortfalls. So that's why they made up to 13% and all that. Relaxations are built in already.
So what about the new, sir, the people, there are some of the, I'm just speaking with the example because, sir, I'm just trying to consolidate the questions and come back to you. So the new assessment which is to be done, sir, suppose 19-20 के अंदर में the same turnover, the profitability in 2021, sir, turnover is being reduced by 20 से 25% and profitability not there, and my working capital requirement has increased.
Yeah.
So turnover is reduced, profitability not there, and my working capital cycle or my working capital requirement is increased, sir. You answer this, sir. I suppose maximum of my questions will be answered there.
I agree. Now, actually, you see what has happened is in case of COVID, it's such an unexpected thing, real black swan event.
Correct,
So now none of us are aware how it is going to play out. So actually now whatever we are doing, it is more of short term, just to survive and like to address the immediate issues. So now as we come to the end of the cycle, hopefully in another 15 days, 1 month, we need to reassess actually what is the actual damage, how many units are really affected. So, and what kind of the book debts, whether I reached 270 days or 360 days, we don't know. And like what happened to the raw material cycles, like, and how the demand is going to play out. So based on that, we may have to relook at the whole issue gamut again. So we'll come back to you. It is slightly premature to comment on these issues. Maybe by end July, August kind of thing. So we'll look at this. But then I'll tell you, whatever issue you are raising, we are fully aware. And I'll assure you that all the people who are sitting at RBI or the government, they are also fully aware. So these kind of things are going to hit us there. So how to solve this, we'll come with the policies at that point of time, because this is definitely going to hit us. We are aware of that. But then at this point of time, why I am not coming with a policy to address this? Because still I do not know to how long it will continue, how much heat and all that. Once we have a fair assessment of the damage, then we may come out with the right things. So you can be rest assured that actually at this point of time, we need to work on how to survive today, tomorrow, how to keep the things going. So we are there to support you. So as it evolves, let us address those issues.
So people are requesting that because of non-fund based limit, there is a lot of cash margin which is also being given to banks. So cash margin, and now I'm taking a 10% extra loan from you at suppose at a higher rate of interest, maybe for COVID. Now 20% I will also take that. And in my FD, there is a less rate of interest which I am getting that way. So how is that possible that instead of you giving me that 10% extra loan, you release my cash margin, sir?
Yeah. And this is actually, I saw that question. So in the reassessment part, we have to take care of that. We will see. One thing we need to be careful is there are some RBI guidelines also on many of these. So we should not be breaching those guidelines. Correct. Because this is concerned with the financial sector health. For a borrower, yes, it makes a difference. Why should I keep money at 6% when I'm paying you 10%? But then these are the margin requirements and all that. But then in the reassessment of working capital, this will be definitely looked into. So case by cases. Now, actually, I'll tell you, you mentioned a case where you have 100% collateral. These are the cases where bank can take a call to release the margin because they're secured otherwise. So that kind of thing can be looked at.
So there are different clients which are again saying that I am into a multiple banking, I am into different banks. Sir, this is where the issues are coming, sir. Don't you think that at this point of time, that proper communication channel again, because I am banking with PNB and Union Bank of India, and then again, one bank does it and the another bank does it, sir. This is where we will land up.
No, we are doing standalone. Now we are not insisting on other bank sanctions as of now. So we are releasing and standalone also. So one by one, all the banks are like among public sector. I can commend about public sector. All the banks are on board. Maybe there may be slight delays here and there, but then everybody is doing. The 10% part has taken off very well. Even the best of the corporates, they have sometimes I ask them, why you need the money? So they all say, we don't know what is the future, so we want to have all the cash with us, so that whenever things hit, we are prepared. If we don't need, we'll pay it back. But then, like, it's better to keep the sanctions in place. So I think public sector has played its role in quickly providing this liquidity. So, like, maybe private sector banks are slowly coming into that. I'm not very sure at this point of time. But then public sector, I can assure you, we are there giving these 10%.
Sir, we are banking with one of the private bank and with a PSU bank. Sir, the private bank is not giving that 10% loan. Why can't a PSU bank help us at this point of time and lend us?
Actually, for us, this board approved policy says 10% of my working capital limit, which I am providing. I'm not supposed to provide on somebody else's limits. But yes, this is an issue. But then, see, this is where, like, anyway, it is a very sensitive issue because there are a lot of people logged in. I don't want to make any comment on that. The responsibility of supporting the economy mostly falls on public sector banks at the difficult times. And we always come up to that expectation and we support. But then private sector model is built on some, because they have their own risk perceptions and lending, because they have investors who question. So naturally, they have their own limitations at this point of time, because they follow a profit-oriented model. So naturally, we're not commenting on how they're working, but then that's the way they work. That is their business model. So these are riskier times. So any exposure at this time, like, can go against them. But when there's public sector bank, we also have to look at the society, the social purpose, because the government has a major stakeholder. And during this time, the public sector banks always come out and help. So we are playing our role.
I think I have to come in here and
Yes, sir,
we put it on record that we are very quick to criticize.
correct,
especially I found we as an Indian society, when we did not get that service from a PSU bank, or we did not get the sanction quick enough, we are very, very quick to criticize, but we're never quick to appreciate. During this period, it's really been demonstrated that how PSU banks have been the pillars of our economy and our businesses. I can tell you a conversation in many entrepreneurial circles in private hushed tones that a lot of them who are not with PSU banks are today regretting that why did they move away from PSU banks. So I have to put a deep appreciation on record, the way that all of you have worked, the way that all the PSU banks, right from the branch level, have worked to support everybody, instantly give the 10% loans, even saying, whatever you want, come to us, tell us what you need, we will help you out, don't worry about it. It has been remarkable. And very frankly, as you alluded, the same support has not been there from cross spectrum of bankers. It has been the PSU which has led the way. And from us, entrepreneurs and business community, I really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for doing that for us.
Thank you.
Sir, Rajkiran, sir, I will also like to appreciate one thing, sir. Out of the thousands of the clients that we at Resurgent India are handling, sir, it is only with the Union Bank of India that all our clients come and less complaints. Sir, there is no complaint that we have received, whatever the clients that we have given and come down. And in fact, sir, Union Bank of India is the only bank where the credit of that interest which was charged for the month of March, it was again credited back to the client's account automatically. क्लाइंट मॉर्निंग में से जाके अपना बैंक अकाउंट देखता, बोलता कि सर वो इंटरेस्ट जो बैंक ने चार्ज कर लिया था 31 मार्च को, 1 अप्रैल को सर ऑटोमेटिकली रिवर्स एंट्री पास हो गई है सर.
We did that so that
सर विश्वास सर, मतलब एब्सोल्युटली, मतलब लोगों ने आपके बारे में और एंड द पीपल दैट कैन अप्रोच यू विश्वास साहब, मतलब एब्सोल्युटली इट वाज इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाटएवर द मयंक जी हैज टोल्ड. I just want to keep you, Biswal Saab and Rajkiran Rai sir, in terms of the crisis, sir, it's a Union Bank, which is a good bank to bank with and good people to bank with, sir. You have absolutely proven it, sir.
There's a question that I've been repeatedly getting from my colleagues and my friends and peers in the industry. So when will you start looking at takeover of accounts?
Correct, sir. Because everybody wants to come back to you, sir.
That corona period, so let's just wait till this period is over so that we can look at, when will you start looking at takeover of good corporates, track record, 25-year-old clean records, takeover of their accounts?
Yeah, I'll be very happy to do that, but then my manpower should be back fully, because at this point of time, we are also operating with some limited manpower because of this crisis at this point of time. Maybe as the lockdown loosens up and when the people are back, then we have a good mechanism. The credit delivery system is very good. So we will definitely look at it because we are always hungry for business. And see, luckily for us, we are adequately capitalized today. So even 20%, 25% credit growth is very easy for us, provided there is an opportunity. So we'll definitely look at.
There are a lot of customers who are asking you in the online that they are banking with some other bank and they want to shift to Union Bank of India after hearing you and everything, sir. You have absolutely, people are asking us कि sir हम कब से Union Bank में जाके banking कर सकते हैं, sir.
I think Biswal Saab is there. He is leading this. So we will leave it to Biswal Saab.
Yes, Biswal sir. लोग आपके पास आना चाह रहे हैं, sir. तो please कैसे आएंगे, sir?
Most welcome. Always most welcome.
The last request I will leave with you.
You can give a list of all those.
Correct, sir. Yes, Mayank, sir.
The last request I will leave with you, sir, before we end the session, I know you have to go, is that when you look at takeovers, please look at the historical track records of company and not 2019, 20 and 2021.
Correct,
Because, you know, a lot of times we go on numbers and CMA data in pure Excel sheet, and we don't look at the quality of the clients and how they have upheld their commitments over 2 decades, 10 years. So I would request you to make a framework for good clients who have kept all the commitments over decades of operations, because a lot of good clients are going to be coming back to PSUs. I can assure you that.
This is very good news for us. Actually, we'll be very happy to do that. Thank you so much.
खाली विश्वास सर, खाली एक चीज है कि सर for the takeover norms last 3 years balance sheet or the 3 years profitability, please try and exclude this year, sir, in case if you can do that. For takeover norms, sir. If that amendment
we can do it, but at policy level, it may be RBI guidelines.
Because a good opportunity है हमारे लिए.
Yes, sir.
Can look at the policies.
Only for this year, sir. Whatever the takeover policy is there, only you can just exclude that 1 year period, and then you can look at the company as a whole. Sir, so this is what the Mayank sir, this sentiment is there. Sir, I would definitely like to place on record the appreciation for all the bankers, sir, in appreciating the Union Bank of India. Sir, I also represent another industrial chamber, CII, and I have got around 4 lakh MSME members with me. And every month I keep on receiving some sort of complaints or other things, sir. Believe me, sir, in this last 2 months, I might have received approximately around 4,000 complaints, sir, but only 1 or 2 pertaining to Union Bank of India, and that too with the Andhra Bank issue, which I have already pointed. Sir, it is a negligible complaint in this last 2 months about your way of working, about these services and everything. There are only 2-3 requests that in case if some sort of a customer interaction on some sort of a technology platform at the RO level or something, that if you can just try and disseminate that, कि वो लोग कोई भी webinar में आके कुछ भी चीज, make it some sort of a, and the timing is also fixed.
Yeah.
जिससे कि customer also knows that whenever there is something, they can at least go and talk to them. So there is some way to, because there is no personal communication which is happening. I suppose this is where some sort of issues which are coming up. If we can resolve that. And sir, again, sir, you start looking at the new accounts now, and I pray to God that everything goes on fine with your bank and everything. Now, can I request Rajiv ji to have his concluding remarks? Rajiv ji, please. He is the DG of ICC. Yes, Rajiv. You have to unmute yourself.
I think it has been absolute pleasure listening to you, sir. And I have been interacting with banks for almost last 20 years. And I must say this is one of the best interaction I have witnessed. And with so much of positivity, you have addressed all the issues. And I think you are a banker with a smile always on your face, which is very important. And the best thing what I have liked in this whole thing, that you are open to ideas, you are willing to reach out, you are willing to help, and that makes you, I would say, one of the most transparent and dependable bank. So on behalf of everybody here, I would like to thank you, Mr. Rai, and thank you, Mr. Biswal, and your full team for reaching out and helping the industry.
So a lot of people are just asking me to congratulate you on the successful merger process that you have done, sir. There are a lot of people who are asking me to personally congratulate. I am not naming everybody. but there are at least 8 or 10 messages that I have received that people are saying that at least Rajkiran Rai sahab ko hamari taraf se you please appreciate, and thank you for that. Biswal sahab, people are again coming and saying ki sir, jo MSME, you have walked that extra mile. People are asking you again to come and say thank you to you. On behalf of all the participants here, sir, approximately around 1,000 participants live, with around 500 participants on the YouTube live, which are there with us right now. I, on behalf of everybody, sir, like to thank you. You are the real heroes of the country. The way that you have walked, the way that you have taken. Thank you with the folded hand to all the entire banking community, especially to Union Bank of India.
And let me also thank you as the host.
Please.
Conducting the whole thing extremely well.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rajiv,
to you
sir.
also.
Thank you,
Thank you
Rajiv.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All the best, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Rajkiran.